Okay, hello everybody. I am Scott Paulsen. This is my lovely wife Rosie, and we are in Zephyr Hills, Florida. And I just want to share my story with you and with Aortic Hope, who has been a huge help in my recovery from my event. But what happened was it was the evening of October 1st, probably around 10:30, and Rosie was in bed already, and I was kind of winding down from a nice, relaxing Sunday, and so I laid down to check my fantasy football score, which which I won that day, by the way, in case you're wondering, and kind of look at my calendar for the next week, and then suddenly I just felt I started experiencing an unusual feeling in my chest, and it wasn't something very painful. It was uncomfortable. But it was enough to get me up to jump out of bed and try to walk it off. Maybe thinking it was a muscle spasm or something, but it didn't feel right. So I walked to the kitchen, took a couple aspirin. I even tried to like make myself burp, and that discomfort was still there. So with all this happening, my mind immediately went to about a week or so before, we had Advent Health at the Chamber of Commerce office, where I'm on staff, and they were showing us how to use the AED machine. And the girl that was there, she left us these pamphlets that talked about chest pain and so on. So my mind immediately went back to that pamphlet that said that if you have a chest pain and it doesn't go away, and I forgot how many minutes or so, but get it checked out. And so I did. You know, the pain, I keep saying pain, but it wasn't. It was pain. It was more of a discomfort, but it was about 4 minutes, and the pain didn't go away at all. And also what really made me go and wake up Rosie was that clear voice in my head that said, you should probably get this checked out. And I mean, it was such a clear voice. It was almost like somebody was standing next to me telling me to do that. So I woke up Rosie, and trying not to alarm her, I told her, and I was like so calm. I said, I think there's something wrong. We should go to the hospital just to be safe. So, you know, you always hear if you have any chest pain or any emergency, you call 911 right away. But we decided to, since the hospital is only about 3 miles from where we live, we decided to drive because my thought was, well, we could get to the hospital a lot quicker by the time the ambulance gets to our home, we could be at the hospital. So what I did now was I decided to change my clothes. So I literally stood in my closet for a couple minutes trying to decide what to wear. I decided on a red polo shirt, in case you're wondering. So we jumped in the car, drove to the ER. It took less than 5 minutes, which probably would have taken about 5 minutes if she didn't run a red light on the way there. But when we got to the hospital, to the ER, Rosie just dropped me off while she went to go park. And this is kind of how what's the word? It was like how critical we were thinking. It was we were so relaxed during the whole thing. It's unusual. But she dropped me off at the door, and I kind of just strolled into the ER, almost like walking into the grocery store.
Yeah.
And there was probably like maybe 2 or 3 other people in the waiting room. So yeah, I went to the guy at the check-in and gave him my insurance card, my driver's license, and you know, and started the check-in process, and told him that I was experiencing some chest pains.
And I walk in there and I tell people, they were all frolicking. Everybody was. There was the guy that checked him in was even singing, and it was taking him inside, but he was singing. So everything was very calm. Everything was very relaxing. People were very, very nice, but they were really kind of not in the high alert. It was just all of them were just, again, having a good day, having a good afternoon. So you went to the
Yeah, so when I was in there, they sat me in a wheelchair, standard procedure, I assume. And like I said, by the time Rosie got inside, I was already checked in, and then she came in. They pushed me into the to the little room where they weighed me, took some blood, took my blood pressure and vitals and everything. Then afterwards, they put me into a little room.
Yeah.
On probably a not so comfortable stretcher, but
Yeah, the bed was a
yeah.
pain.
So that's where I changed into the hospital gown, and they hooked me up to an EKG, did all that, and this whole time I'm still just like calm as nothing is happening. And when I finally saw the ER doctor, and I say finally, but all this has probably happened within less than
Very
an hour. It was like everything was worked like clockwork. But at this point, when I saw the ER doctor, I told him that I did have a aortic aneurysm that's been stable, a stable 4.8 centimeters for several years, and literally in August, I had just had my annual CT scan, and everything was stable. Again, so they took the CT scan, and if you've ever had this done, you know the sound of that machine, and then when they add that contrast, you feel your whole body heat up from the inside out. And it was just a normal procedure to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the results came back, and that's when, like Rosie said, they were kind of frolicking. They were in a very lighthearted mood when we first got there, and then when the results came back, that's when they
went in like high alert.
Yeah,
that's when they really became, okay, this is serious. We have to do something. And he actually, the ER doctor did not want to tell us really what it was. He did say, I don't want to step in anybody's toe, but this is something called aortic dissection. So of course, says, and so we're going to have an operation. So of course, him and I Google aortic dissection, and we really thought that it was going to be something very simple. We never went to the whole ordeal of what happened. But he also said, we are going to have to transport him somewhere.
Yeah.
And they were talking about airlifting.
Right. Yeah. And when they did mention airlifting me, and of course, any normal person would probably think, well, they want to transfer me from here to another hospital by helicopter, so this has to be serious. My thought was, oh, they just want to charge the insurance company more money, but hey, at least I'll get to ride in a helicopter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But ended up, because of weather that night in Tampa, they couldn't get the helicopter up to Zephyr Hills. So they ended up transferring me by ambulance, which I'm still owed a helicopter ride. But anyway, under different circumstances, of course.
Yeah. And by this, I was going to follow the ambulance in the car. So he
Right.
was very adamant about me getting into the ambulance with him.
So, and at this time, I'm still, like, when they even mentioned surgery, my thought was, okay, knowing that I had the aneurysm, I prior to all this, I Googled things and saw and convinced myself that could be fixed easily with a stent or endoscopically or whatever. They just go into veins and in and out in no time. And even on the ambulance ride there, it's probably about from Advent Health Zephyr Hills to the Pepin Heart Institute in Tampa. The ambulance ride was probably about 35, 40 minutes. And my thought too was, okay, they're driving, they're stopping at red lights. the sirens aren't blaring. So how serious is this really?
Yeah.
Um,
And by
got-
this, there were two. So they looked at two hospitals, Tampa General, who was full, and then San Joseph, which is where his cardiologist was, who was full also. So we end up at Pepin, which I think it was the best thing that could happen for us. And it was very quickly where we did have the nice ride. It was what, 20 minutes?
No, it was about 35. It was about a 35-minute ride. And it was, and even there was one point when the medics in the ambulance was, what do you say about the blood pressure?
Yeah, he was trying to get the blood pressure, and he finally said, "Okay, got it. It's all kind of normal, so I'm okay." Because he was a little bit concerned, but then once he got what he needed to get, all what he was looking for, he was fine. I said, "Oh," and he said, "Okay, got it." And then everything went back to normal. So even the guys at the ambulance or the transport, they were really fine. There was really no concern. I think the naiveness of this whole thing was one of the biggest blessings that I think we had, because we never, or at least I did not spend, I did not experience fear or something, death or nothing like that. It was just like everything just was happening like a soap opera that you were just watching.
Yeah, so when we did arrive at the Pepin Heart Institute, the surgical team was there waiting for me, and Rosie said it looked like
like an episode of Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
Everybody was there, the surgeons, the people that were going to do the anesthesia, the nurses. So of course there was this kind nurse that looked at me like, and she says, "Are you okay?" And I was fine. She says, "Do you understand? Have they told you what happened?" And I said, "No, not really. They haven't." So she's the one that kind of took me to the side, and she said to me, "He is going to have open heart surgery," but in my mind it still is like, "No, he's not. He's just like right there talking to all these people." So I guess I just put it behind, and I did not really think about the open heart surgery. I really didn't understand that. I knew there was going to be some tubes because some people have told me before what to expect, but it was not something that it registered to me.
Yeah. And so of course we're waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided, let's I asked for the chaplain so we could get some prayer. And this is wow, this like still gives me chills when I think about it. So they page the chaplain, and in walks Pastor Joe, a friend of ours.
Yes.
That lives in Pinellas, which is probably about an hour away. Just happened to be there interning that night, and it's like what are the chances of that? And nobody in the world will ever convince me that was a simple coincidence. So that's when I knew that God had showed up, like in person through Pastor Joe.
Yeah, and you gotta understand, we are in Pasco, which is the other side. Pastor Joe is in Pinellas, which is the other side, but the middle is Tampa, where we were. And the side note, Pastor Joe was actually about to go take a break, and they actually called him, paged him, and then said, "You need to come now." And Pastor Joe says, "Well, how dangerous or how serious this is?" And they told him that he might not make it. Now, this has happened later. That's when we talked to him. So he rushed because he was going to have a break, so he didn't, and he rushed to the room, and he sees us, and Pastor Joe laughed because he says, "I needed a chaplain myself." When I walked to the room and saw that it was you guys. But the one thing that I always tell people in this whole situation, the reason why I think my husband was so adamant about the chaplain, yes, it was for the prayer, but he knew I was going to be by myself. And while the guy is dying, he's thinking about me. So he was going to ask the chaplain, whoever it was, to stay with me and not to leave me alone. But there comes Joe, and he knew Joe was not going to leave me alone, which he did. He did not leave me alone until my friend Debbie showed up, and then my parents. But it was a kind of 6 hours ordeal. But when they took him, he was fine. He did not have any type. You know, ladies, you know when your husband has. I know my husband when he is stressing and his eyes kind of shake when he looks at me, although he's very calm, and he had no of that anxiety, which I think also that was part of what the nurses work with him about, where they calm him down. Now here, my biggest thing is that I had to, I don't think, but look at my husband's wedding band. It's a big wedding band, and this is very special to me. And then they say they had to take his wedding band. And all I could think about is where to put the wedding band because it was so big. None of my fingers would fit in it. And then all I could think about is what if I lose his wedding band? So I was trying to just put the wedding band somewhere where I can remember later. And then I just gave him a kiss and I told him I love him, and they took him away.
And then they took me to another room where they were prepping me for the surgery. And it's still, looking back, I see how unusual it might be, but I still didn't really feel too anxious. And you know, I say, like, I've had more anxiety going to the dentist for a simple cleaning. And then the grand question was asked of me by one of the nurses. She asked if they could cut my beard. So my response was that, well, if you have to, then yeah, you can. But I told her that I'm a professional Santa Claus. So what she did is she braided my beard somehow as like really tight up against my chin. And she did it in record time. And I remember as she's doing it, the surgeon was kind of telling her to hurry up. And even I remember too when the chaplain, he was kind of rushing him out the door as well. And even with the surgeon rushing everybody out, wanting to get the surgery started, I never still once considered the seriousness of what I was going into. I was actually even told later by Pastor Joe that I was making jokes and didn't seem worried about the seriousness of it.
Yeah.
But also, and I'm glad I did this because I told the nurse that I suffered from anxiety at times. So this was after all of this. This was pretty much right before they took me under. They gave me something for the anxiety. And you know, and you can't. I'm convinced 100% that God was working in my mind, keeping me calm, because I know I would have been a nervous wreck anticipating any surgery. And that was even one of my fears too, knowing that I had the aneurysm, going to the cardiologist and him saying, okay, in a couple weeks, you're going to have open heart surgery, which I think I would have been a completely wreck for
those 2 weeks.
And it's to my mind, to this day, it boggles my mind how everything would just happen like clockwork, and we couldn't have planned any of this any smoother. And I'm one of these people that if we go on a trip, I plan our rest area stops. I plan where we're going to eat, which usually doesn't work out that way. Even my planned extra time doesn't work out. but I'm a planner,
Uh-huh.
and I could not imagine planning how well everything. It was a well-oiled machine. There's just no
You,
just the way the pieces fell together, it, like, just amazes me.
yeah, God was through this whole thing. And I think, again, the way he protected our heart and protected this whole situation was the naiveness about it. It did not ever dawn on us the severity of what occurred. And the reason why the nurses were rushing the Pastor Joe to kind of pray. It's time is of the essence. I remember her telling him that. Also, while they already put him under, they kept saying to me that they were gonna keep me informed. So of course, what happens is that I have my phone in silent all the time when I go to sleep. So the nurse comes out. Now that's where I really got a little bit concerned. So she told me, because she saw my face, and she goes, no, calm down, take a deep breath. And I said, no, we just wanted to let you know that he's under now, and he's asleep. But your phone is not it's not responding. You need to remove your phone from do not receive phone calls, because you do not disturb, because then that way they kept me going. So Pastor Joe and I were laughing and talking about it and things like that. And well, we'll fall asleep a little bit and stuff like that. And I think the whole thing started at around 5:30, maybe 5:30. So I was kind of waiting a little bit to get my family up and everybody. I know by then my friend Debbie was already driving to Tampa to be with me. And I know that's what Pastor Joe was waiting, because Pastor Joe had been at the hospital all night long. And he actually was supposed to leave by the time I think we arrived, but he stayed there because of me, to make sure that I was okay. So yeah.
Yeah, and really the last thing, after they prepped me, last thing I remember was the mask being put on going down on my face, and I saw the big round light in the ER. So I closed my eyes, and like on TV, they tell you it's always, oh, count from 10 backwards. But this was, the mask came on, and the anesthesiologist just said, breathe normal. And like in a second, the next thing I knew, I woke up in the ER.
Yeah, and not the ER, baby.
I'm sorry, in the ICU.
The ICU.
Yeah, and it was literally, to me, it was like a split second.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the ICU. Rosie was there holding my hand. And this was kind of the tough part, because I woke up, I had the breathing tube. So with that, my hands were kind of restrained. And that's when I found out that I had that the surgery was more involved than just the stent that I was expecting, and I actually had open heart surgery.
Yeah.
But I was still surprised to have that breathing tube in my mouth, keeping me from talking.
He could hear us.
Yeah, I could hear. I could shake my head, yes or no, and I couldn't say that my neck was hurting. Put some more pillows, but somehow I cannot recall the nurse's name. It's almost like she read my mind, and they were amazing, keeping me comfortable. She would adjust the pillow behind my neck and stuff. And for me, that was the most uncomfortable part, was because I just felt helpless.
Yeah.
So what I would do, I would open my eyes, I'd wake up, I would just instantly start praying and say, God, let me go back to sleep until this thing is out of my mouth. And it did. I by the grace of God, I was allowed to sleep. And we went, from the time we went into the ER it was about 11 o'clock Sunday night. The breathing tube came out on, was it Tuesday or Wednesday?
Just about
The surgery was
24.
Monday.
Uh-huh.
So it was about, no, it was Wednesday when they took the breathing tube out. But
Yes.
anyway, if it was about 48 hours, maybe.
Yeah.
If it was that amount of time, to me, it was like a time warp. It probably seemed like an hour. And even looking back now, as uncomfortable as the breathing tube was, I look back and right now, compared to the 6 months, it's like seconds. It's a moment of time that is passed. So would I want to do it again? No.
Yeah.
But I know that it would pass. I know that that the time will pass by, and compared to the 6 months of that I've been recovering, that's just a moment in time.
And I do want to kind of tell, so when I was in the emergency room waiting for him, every hour or so they would come out and said, okay, he's out of bypass. So they put him in bypass. His heart, they did his chest open and stuff like that. So they kept me very involved and very engaged in what's happening. Then they told me he was out of bypass, which that was really good. And then they said, okay, the surgery's done. So now he's in the recovery area. And that's when they told me, okay, you're going, because I guess the waiting room where I was outside the ICU, whereas where they brought him later. And when he was recovering, I saw some other ladies there, and they were by themselves. So I can tell you that God was really good. I was not alone, because I probably would have been so scared to be alone there. Now, when they brought me in, I had an idea of what to expect, because I was told about all the tubes that was going to come out by somebody else from some odd reason. Again, God has prepared us for this with little hints that happened before. But I remember attending a meeting where a firefighter mentioned what to expect, because the biggest shock when somebody has an open heart surgery is that all those tubes that come out. So I kind of understood that that's what I was gonna expect. But for my friend Debbie, which I had told her the tubes were gonna come, for her, she almost broke down, because each tube, each wire was attached to a machine, and each machine had a different, I guess, a function for him. So I never really noticed the machines. I was just so focused on the tubes. But that was eye-opening for her. It was really hard, but yeah. But seeing him there, and he was fine. Really, he was fine. Although he was uncomfortable, he was alive, and he had new piping.
And one of my, I don't want to say favorite, one of the funniest parts of recovering in the ICU was the gentleman nurse who came to give me my first breathing treatment. And I'm sure, well, I know it was because of anesthesia and the amount of medication was on, but I could have sworn, and I would have bet money, that this dude looked exactly like Zach Galifianakis, specifically from the movie Dinner with the Schmucks, where he had the dickie on and everything. And that gave me something to do for the next 24 hours, because my mind was just going on and on, just thinking, okay, this guy has to come back, let him come back. And it wasn't just that was him, but he was treating me with essential oils. So and it's funny, but the next day when he did come back for my breathing treatment, it was the same guy, but looked nothing like Zach Galifianakis, other than he had like a little goatee. But that was just that was funny. I still crack up about that. And then even like just realizing that I couldn't stand up on my own, that was just surprising, because it still hadn't comprehended what I had gone through, what my body had gone through. But the nursing staff they were amazing. They helped me stand up. They taught me how to stand up properly, and everything. And they were great. Those the ICU nurses were just amazing. I wouldn't suggest going there, because you have to, because it's usually for a bad reason. But if you have to, it was I would definitely recommend them.
I do want to mention that one of the nurses was saying that, and this is, I think, again, when we going back to God being involved, because it was so early in the morning. I think most of the doctors were fresh, but the doctor that actually did his surgery is one of them. He says he's not the number one, but he is one of the biggest, like, really good doctors when it comes to cardiovascular surgeries. So again, he kind of have described to me what happened, and he drew it, and it was really easy to understand for me of what they did in his heart. But jokingly, he told Scott, "Yeah, man, when I hit you, I was driving a truck."
Yeah, that felt like it. But I was in the ICU for a total of 5 days, and then they moved me to the regular hospital room, which was kind of funny, because the surgery center, or the Heart Institute, is fairly very new.
The
and
surgery
state of the art, and it was almost like being on like the Starship Enterprise. And then they moved me to the hospital wing, and which was the old part of the hospital. So everything, it was almost like I got sent back to the 80s.
Yeah, it was a work. You passed this hall, and it was like a work going from everything modern to 70s, back to the 70s. But I do want to mention, I did leadership Tampa Bay, and it happened that when I did, they had a day called the health day, and you go visit all the hospitals. And we end up visiting Pepin Hospital, and they actually show us the machines that they use now. And I probably, if I go back, I bet you anything that the doctor that did his surgery was the one that was showing these machines. So little did I know, again, talking about God being involved, I actually got named Pepin Hospital. I was like, oh man, this is so good. And because it's Advent Health, Advent Health has a lot of Bible verses, God. It's very I guess prayed about. All the people have their faith in there. So it was really good to know that he was gonna in the future be there. So
right, yeah, and every morning over the intercom they would do their prayer, which was nice and comforting to hear. So after a week in the hospital, we came home. I rode in the back seat of our car for the very first time.
yeah.
But to me, this is almost like that week in the hospital too is almost a blur still. And the recovery, even for me, was a little bit slower than I thought it was would be. So but I knew every day was every day was a positive step forward.
He loved the lady that gave him the food.
Oh yeah,
the dietitian lady. She was so nice.
Well, except when she said I couldn't have macaroni and cheese.
Oh yeah. But she will always come and make sure that he got what he needed. And I think he says he was 5 days in the ICU, but I think it was 4. it was really, really, if it was not less. But then they wanted to send him home within like the next day, 24 hours after that. So I did get a little bit scared on that because I did not know. I thought after open heart surgery, you will stay in the hospital a little bit longer. So what saved us is that actually they wanted to discharge him on Friday and they didn't get the stuff. So he was able to stay the weekend and we finally went home on Monday. But it was a whole week from the surgery that was Monday to me taking him to the house on Monday.
Yeah, and even during my recovery, I pretty much spent 24 hours a day on a recliner because that was the most comfortable that I could be, most comfortable position for me. And I had the home health care came and did their stuff a few times a week.
Yeah.
And one of the most scary things that happened during the recovery is I stood up and almost tripped and fell. And then like my mind automatically went like, okay, I don't want to wind up back in the hospital. So since then, like whenever I got up, I would kind of shuffle my feet, like kind of like if you're walking through stingrays or something.
Yeah, but when we got here, and I do have to mention this because all of our friends know how bad of a cook I am, and my husband is usually the one that cooks. So they all went in high alert, and they did this train meal for, bringing all types of food for us. So we had plenty of food. All I had to do was warming the food up. And I went 4 weeks without having an incident, and then I almost burned the house down. So again, at that time, my poor husband will have to walk to the kitchen to make sure I didn't leave anything on. I almost burned down something else too. So I think I did pretty good, just having two maybe possible accidents. But yeah, we thank you guys.
We're extremely grateful for everyone who came out and helped, came out to give us food, and even the few people who came out and just to sit with us. And that was nice. One part too in the recovery is it probably took, I don't know how many weeks for it to really sink in what happened to me. And before that, even knowing that I had the aneurysm, I did not know what an aortic dissection was.
Yes.
And really, I just kind of searched online and during my recovery, and that's how I found the John Ritter Institute or the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health, which kind of led me to the Aortic Hope, which has been great because it's a peer. I would say it's a peer-to-peer support group, and any question that I've ever had, like during my recovery, I'd post it in the private group, and somebody went through it. One of the things that I dealt with was brain fog. Even more than normal, and ended up being something called pump brain or pump head, which is the effect from the bypass machine. So I'm still kind of struggling with that a little bit, but it's not as bad as it was 5 or 4 months ago.
The book, tell them about that book. The book that Aortic Hope
has. I will.
Oh, okay.
I'm not there yet.
No, he's not there yet. Sorry. We do have to tell you that a little kitty is here. So if you guys hear a loud sound, it's because she's just messing out. And we actually thank my mom because she had to take our little kitty for about a month to make sure that we were okay with her because she missed her daddy. Yeah, she's a daddy's girl.
Yeah, I was afraid that the cat was going to jump on my newly opened up chest, my zipper. What was I going to say? But one of the things too that I realized, and it's something else that's gotten better, was like extremely jumpy. Like every noise, I'd feel like I would jump out of my skin.
Mm-hmm.
And later find out that was another question that I was able to put into the group and answered that it is PTS, post-traumatic stress, and it's normal. A lot of people go through it, have gone through it, which just knowing that other people have gone through it and worked through it, experienced it, worked through it, and it went away was a lot of comfort for me.
Yeah. The other part is he had I always wondered if he really needed that open heart surgery, right? That was one of those things that I was kind of like scared that he went through this whole traumatic experience, but that he really needed. And again, they go show God showed up. I go and meet this doctor's office. And in that office, the nurse had actually worked for the doctor that Scott had, did the surgery for him. And then he asked me, does he have this scar on the side, on his side? And I said, yeah, we're just wondering what it was. And she says, that's actually the camera that they would put in to make sure that he does, because the thing that they don't want to do is have the open heart surgery unless it's necessary. And I did remember the doctor saying that when he went in, he had already some leakage on his heart, and that's when they replaced one of the valves, and then they put the mesh into the aorta. And by all this, I think, I don't know if I'm getting ahead, but when we went back to the cardiologist kept looking at Scott like he was a ghost. And that's when he really told us that 90% of the people that get what Scott gets does not survive. So he literally, the reason why he was so, like looking, he says, it's like he was looking at a ghost. And the thing is that he never really ever in our lives, I don't even think he knew or he expected for him to have open heart surgery or for that to happen that fast.
Yeah, because I was with that aneurysm for so long. When it was a watch and wait for a long time, and it was definitely a surprise, more of a surprise afterwards, because during I really didn't know what hit me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess if I was to give any advice, it would be to listen to your body, know your body, and listen to it. Because when we went back to see the surgeon, he told me that you must have a very fast-moving guardian angel, because it was such a mild discomfort. That I could have easily gone back to bed. I could have taken some Tylenol, could have taken something to put me to sleep, and that would have been it. I would not have woken up. So I would say listen to your body. And I know I hear a lot of stories of other people who've gone through the same exact surgery as me, had the same dissection, same valve replacement. And I hear of excruciating pain they had in their back or in their chest, a tearing sensation, shortness of breath, but I didn't have any of that. And it was really just me, a combination of me reading that pamphlet about chest pain, about that voice, that crystal clear voice that told me to go to the hospital, knowing that I had that aneurysm of 4.8 centimeters, and knowing that having this information is what made me say, let's go get this checked out. Because what's the very worst that could happen is we'll end up with the hospital bill and I'll lose a night's sleep at the hospital. And I unfortunately too, I hear other stories of people, especially men who try to tough it out. Don't tough it out. Get it checked out. That's what I would say, because it's your life, and you don't want to fool around with that. You don't want to take any chances. And another thing too is if you do have a history in your family of people who died of sudden heart attacks, and what I've heard, get it checked out, because this could very well be hereditary. And I found out afterwards that there's some people on my father's side of the family, so my great aunts and uncles that had the same condition. But I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I do want to interrupt to kind of share the story, but a lot of gentlemen tell my husband, oh my God, I probably would have go back to sleep. And, I probably would have find my husband dead. And that to me is so traumatic when I think about it. But it's the wisdom. It's a wisdom. And I remember when he says, you got to take me, I was like thinking, did you eat something? Like, what did you eat? I just thought maybe it was something that he ate. But it was his wisdom and all these things that prepare us for this. But at the end, gentlemen, I know my husband loves me because he thought about me first and says, okay, what's the worst that we can happen? It's just a bill overnight, not sleeping. But the wisdom of him saying, take me to the hospital, because his pride went to the side, anything. I just want to make sure that this is okay.
Yeah, and I'd say too is listen to your doctor. And I sometimes do wonder to myself, because the cardiologist, he did recommend certain diet for me, but chicken wings were not on the diet plan, and that was one of my favorite foods. So I did not follow his diet 100%. I wonder sometimes if that would have had anything to do with it, but I would, if going back in time, I tell myself, listen to the doctor. He knows better than you. He knows better than Google. He knows better than your neighbor that had foot pain or whatever. So yeah, I'd say definitely listen to your doctor. And one of the biggest things that helped me during the recovery, when I was sitting on that chair, not able to move a whole lot, was just taking it one day at a time. Because in my mind, this was the beginning of October, which, as I mentioned before, I portray Santa Claus during the season. And my mind was going, okay, how am I going to get this job done? How am I going to get, my mind was already into late November, early December, wanting to get things done. And it occurred to me that take one day at a time, even one moment at a time, and savor those moments too, because each moment that passes, it's gone. So take one moment. Don't try to rush yourself. And also there's don't stress over things. Because I remember too, even the last echo I had, the year prior, the doctor saw something that he wanted to do a CT. So usually what happened, I would go in for echo and not really hear anything back until about a week later on my next appointment. This last time, he wanted to see, they called me the next day. So I went probably a week of just stressing out for really no reason, because after they did the CT scan, it was the aorta, the aneurysm I had was still stable, still 4.8 centimeters. And I think too, that's why the cardiologist was almost surprised that it dissected, was because it's been stable for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be my advice. And also one of the things is, like I mentioned, listen to your body, because during the recovery too, I would, like, almost every every twist, every turn, every pain I would have, my mind would try to freak out and say, "Oh, is it happening again?"
Mhm.
But I knew that that if the pain went away instantly, it was most likely a muscle pain, or because my ribs were cracked open, or and my chest was cut open. So yeah, there's going to be that pain. But that was kind of scary. But I did understand that that the pain did go away. So that helped me out.
And as a caregiver, I think the biggest thing that you need to think about is have grace on yourself, have grace on him. This is or on the person, because this is something new for everybody. But one thing I did is I actually did not stop doing my routine of the things that I needed to do. So I love to walk in the morning to kind of clear my head. And that was something I was going to do because I needed to be in the best um, state of mind for myself to be able to be a caregiver as much as I could. Because again, there's only so much I could do for my husband at that time. But I knew that what he needed was for me to be his support system. And sometimes he gets cranky and sometimes he gets snappy, and I don't take it personal, although sometimes it's the place in your head. Again, there's a lot of things that happen. So as a caregiver, just those things, let it ride, and have grace on yourself. Don't do too much. Do one thing at a time. If the house gets dirty, the house gets dirty. If there's a lot of laundry to do, oh well, whatever. Just again, spend those times together, just being able to be a support and encourage for each other.
Yeah, and what happened, how I found, like I mentioned before, through the John Ritter Foundation, I found Aortic Hope, and they have a patient guide, and it was probably about November by the time I got it, and it was such a huge help. This guide it's amazing, and if you get a chance, go to the website and just look through the patient guide and see how much amazing information is in there. But what bothered me is I didn't have it when I left the hospital, and that's what kind of helped me get involved. Want to get involved with Aortic Hope to see what I can do to do my part to bring awareness to aortic disease, because it is a silent disease, and try to get to hospitals, cardiologists, other doctors, try to get that patient guide in their hands. So when someone does have open heart surgery, they could leave the hospital with that knowledge that's from many people who have been through the same thing, and knowledge from doctors. And one of the greatest things too, there in the back of the book, there's a place for questions to ask your surgeon. And unfortunately, when I went to visit my surgeon, I didn't have that in my hands yet. And I think I was still in shock too, because I really didn't ask a whole lot of questions. So it wasn't until afterwards that I found that.
He didn't want to know the whole extent of it. But there's this little heart pillow that they gave him to be able to hold when he coughs or whatever. So it's going to be one of those things that we're going to be advocating, that as much as you give that nice pillow to somebody that had open heart surgery, that guide should be in there. So Advent Health is actually, I have a few connections there, and we are going to advocate. We belong to the Tampa Club, and they're having an event that is mental health and health awareness. And Scott is probably going to Scott has become an ambassador to be able to share this book and this information with people that need to have that, so they don't have this knowledge of what to expect when they come back home.
Yeah, and so I definitely I do want to thank Advent Health, especially the ER doctor, for recognizing
Yes.
and moving. Because another thing I hear stories of folks that have been wait around in the ER for a long time, and so I'm really grateful for Advent Health and definitely Pep and Heart Institute for their knowledge, for their technology, and for keeping me comfortable.
And the rehab, you want to mention?
And the rehab. I also did my rehab at Advent Health Zephyr Hills, and the nursing staff was phenomenal. They were great. They were great listeners, and never once felt pressured. Yes. So
that's the cardiac rehab, which was very helpful. You know, but they did treat him very well, and he was very consistent with that. But thank you, Advent Health, for that part too.
And right now I'm doing my physical therapy. So I want to thank Dr. Kelly. Yes,
Dr. Kelly Baez.
Yeah, she's doing an amazing job with me.
Yeah.
So at this point, I just want to thank everybody for listening. And if you do have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Yeah.
You guys are adorable. What a great story. Yeah. Let's go ahead and address some of the chat here. Right away, we're going to say hi to everybody that jumped in to say hi. Sonia Crespo.
Yes, that's a mom.
Chef Tom. Velda McKenzie, our Canadian support group hostess.
Oh, and Chef Thomas, thank you. He is the chef at our at the club, and he feeds me well and things that are specifically on my diet.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
I think we might have our wires crossed. This Chef Tom lives in New York State.
Oh, okay.
It's a different chef.
Okay. Well, thank you anyway, Chef.
Yeah, the call out's the call out. Karen dropped in to say, Scott, thanks so much for sharing. She's got emojis in there, you know.
Okay.
Dean, one of our favorites from our Hangouts, Dean Shepler's in here to say hi. And Tom Basserier from Mindfulness with Tom dropped in to say hi as well.
Oh, good.
Right? And
yeah,
so right away, I have a question.
Okay.
One of the first things that we find out about in the support groups is your interactions with any prescriptions that you had. For some of the newer people that come through the operations, they struggle with side effects. Did you have any troubles there?
My biggest side effect is probably fatigue, and I'm still kind of dealing with right now. So even 6 months later. So I'm going to the cardiologist and letting him know, and hopefully I could get a little bit adjustment on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the heads up on that. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, and there's a friend of mine that also had some issues with his heart. So he was having the same lethargic kind of deal. So he gave us some advice to talk to the doctor about. So we're gonna go with those questions to see if his medication gets changed. So he can experience some of his energy back.
Yeah. Just a heads up on that. Any medication changes could take upwards of 2 weeks for the previous medication to run its course while the new medication picks things up. So, just don't expect an overnight change when those things happen. Okay. Did you have any scheduling with therapy for post-traumatic stress, or are you still at home working on it?
Well, we do have a therapist that I'm able to talk to with that. Part of the one of the biggest things with the post-traumatic stress was the breathing tube, and that's I didn't know who to tell, because I could tell people about it, but they would not really understand unless you've been have had it. I don't think you could really relate to it. And that's when I talked to a aortic advocate at John Ritter Foundation. I was able to get it out then. And a lot of times just talking about stuff to somebody is therapy in itself, especially if it's someone that you know has gone through it.
And this is the funny, but our counselor, which are we able to tell her name? Yeah. So Jerry's actually, Jerry has gone through us with this whole situation, but Jerry's husband had open heart surgery after Scott. So actually, she has been able to lean on Scott to know what to expect on her husband's surgery. So, again, there goes that God has been so orchestrating all this, but, he's able to go back and says, this is what you will need to look out for and things like that. So, yeah, thank you, Jerry, for always being such a good friend to us and listener to us.
And one of the things too, that the piece of advice I got or gave was, I got these huge shirts to wear because it was almost impossible, because I was told to do the Tyrannosaurus, keep my arms in all the time. So I got these huge shirts I was able to put on and take off almost by myself, and it kept the cloth away from the incision, because that was tender for a long time to me.
And I do have to say, his incision is perfect. It's like everybody that sees his incision, I've seen some very ugly ones, but his is perfect actually. So for being so traumatic, it looks really, really good.
How did you manage the beard with did you leave that braided up?
Yeah, I left it braided up for probably about a month. And
Wow.
and finally I was able to see the kind of rubber band that was holding the braid. And right when I took it out, it was the grossest thing. It was, probably like a piece of every meal that I've had through October was in my beard. So it was not pretty. So after about an hour of washing it, it was back to normal.
Yeah, but we appreciate that they were able to, honor that for him, and for this lady to take the time in that moment that it was rushing to braid it all in and shove it in there that you couldn't see, because everybody thought that his beard that it was chopped up, but it was just very tucked in there. And it lasted, like he says, for about a month.
Yeah. That's good work. That's excellent work.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you're covered when it comes to therapy coming out. So you address that post-traumatic stuff right away. One of the other things that we talk about are some of the dream state that you get put into. Do you have any recurring dreams come up?
Not yet, but I guess that could probably go back to another side effect, or even PTS, is like I'm still having trouble sleeping. So it's finally starting to get a little better. Doing the mindfulness class with Tom has been helpful, because I'll go into, even though we've only done two of the lessons so far, I could use what I've learned from that to kind of calm my mind and take it away from that. Yeah, but I think one of the things too is it's almost hard to get kind of comfortable. So there's times where I still get up out of bed and go sleep in the recliner because I have like 100 pillows all stacked up on there, and it's good.
We moved those pillows so much that I told him we're gonna have a pillow burning party because I kept taking all those pillows, putting them back on, it was constantly 1,000 times, but that was the only thing that he could do to feel comfortable. And he did order one of those little recliner thing, like a pillow.
Those wedges that you put on the bed.
For the bed. So, he uses, that's very helpful. The only thing is that it slides. So that's one of those things that I don't know if there's a resource for what to use, so when you're sleeping you don't slide out of it. But he's now been able to sleep on his side, which was the other part that he was only sleeping like face up.
Okay.
And now he's able to sleep in the side too. So, yeah.
Okay. How about walking? Are you walking every day?
Um, well, not as much as I should. Yeah, so I try. One of the things that happened too was the small routine that I had prior to the surgery got completely thrown out of whack, and I'm still having a tough time trying to get back onto a certain routine. The cardiac rehab did help, but after that ended, I'm still having the little issues getting back on track with the walking that I need to do.
Yeah.
I know some
And
of
a
the.
lot of
Oh,
this,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, and a lot of this stuff with him, again, have patience, but there's things that we were supposed to have some routines that is not happening. So it is, as a caregiver, it's very frustrating because it does help to manage the household or the appointments that we have, or because we work together. So we own our own business. So our time is managed for the things that we do. So if we have events this week, we used to have a meeting every week to talk about where we were going to go or what we were going to do. And right now he's not up to that part. So then sporadically I said, well, we got this meeting tomorrow. And he's like, well, I didn't know anything about it. I was like, yes, well, honey, we don't have those meetings. So hopefully he's in the process of getting back to those routines. But the faster you get to your routines, the easier it's going to be when you don't stress out, because he doesn't stress out because he doesn't know anything about it, but I'm the one that has to deal with all those things.
Well, until the morning of the event when I'm reminded of it.
Yeah.
That's fun. I know that in the community we've heard of a few people take cardiac rehab more than once, right? Yeah. So I mean, it might be worth talking to cardiologists and getting another prescription written up and.
Right. Yeah.
I hear good things, not just about the comfortability of getting back into the movement, but it's that early stages where you're being monitored with every step. That early stages where you're hearing your, the response on your heart rate, the response on your blood pressure.
Yeah, and I was amazed by how well I did in the cardiac rehab, because I started because I did that the 6-minute test where to see how far I could walk in 6 minutes, and I believe the first one was like 150 feet or like something, not a lot, but the last one they did at the end of the 36 sessions, I was able to do over 360 feet. And if looking at miles per hour, the first one I didn't even get up to 2 miles per hour. There was at one point where I really pushed myself. They were about to stop me, but I got up to walking 4 miles per hour for 2 minutes straight. And that was just something that I wanted to prove to myself. And even probably a few weeks after the cardiac rehab, I did a 5K walk, which I did. That was another thing to kind of prove to myself that I could do it, and it did it in 58 minutes, which felt good, considering it took me probably 58 minutes to get up out of my chair and get to the bathroom in October. So that was quite an accomplishment.
What time of year was this?
One of the things that I also.
What time of year was the 5K?
When was it? It was in February.
So yeah, cold so outside.
Well, we're in Florida, so
never mind.
Yeah. To you, it might have been hot to the Northerners, but it was a beautiful morning, so it was perfect weather.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to, and I think he cannot share it with me, but he usually needs the TV on, but now the TV on is constantly on all the time. He turns the TV off, like he haven't, but he has it on all the time. And one time he says, I hope you don't get freaked out with this, but it's like now he hears his heart. So that part is very, I guess,
Yeah, I forgot.
concerning
Yeah,
to him?
I forgot to mention that it's and because I had the graft and the valve, and the funny thing about the valve, when they told me a bovine valve, my mind, I automatically pictured like a valve that was just cut out of a cow's heart and sewn in place. Um, and it really wasn't until I found, like, I got a letter from Edwards Life Science, or Edward Sciences, the one who produced the valve, and I saw that it's like this whole this whole device. It's not just a valve, so, like taking out a cow and sewed in place. So that was, seeing that was actually a lot of comfort to me, knowing that was something that was engineered and put in place.
And then he jokingly said that he ate steak the next day at the hospital, and it was probably the leftover from the.
Yeah, they had roast beef one day for dinner, and I said that it was the cow that they got the heart valve out of.
Yeah, yeah, but tell him about the heart thingy. That's the reason why.
But yeah, well, to me it sounds different, because I remember back even like doing, like, where you would meditate, you listen to your body, you listen to your breath and heart, and now it just seems like a little bit louder. So that's was taking a little bit of getting used to, and that's why I think part of it why I was watching TV to fall asleep too. Which that, and it's been 6 months too now, but that's getting better, that part. So kind of.
Yeah.
All right. 6 months is still very early into this process.
Yeah, and that's what I'm understanding too, because the first thing I remember reading when I Googled it, Google has all the answers, was that in 6 weeks I would be back to normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Thursday before the surgery on Sunday, I actually attended an open house for a doctor, and the doctor had open heart surgery, and I don't know if it was the same thing he had, but he had mentioned, again, not to be surprised, because it took him 18 months to get back to what he called the new normal. So he's very empathetic to his patients, because he's been through this. So that's the other part, where whenever people says, okay, 6 months, yes, your sternum is healed supposedly, right? But it would take between 12 to 18 months for him to go back to feel the way he was feeling before the surgery, and to understand what the new normal is. The wiring, to me, was the other thing too. I did not understand that, when they open the sternum, because it's a bone, it's not like it heal, or like it will grow together. So they have to put those little wirings in there. So now is he gonna beep while we're going through the air? Like if we flying somewhere, is he gonna beep? It's gonna happen. So those are the new things that we are going to have to deal with and manage and work through for our new, like I said, like our new normal, right?
Yeah, I would counsel to be patient for the 18-month mark. You're gonna feel a little bit more put together.
Right.
But some of the other stuff that we've seen in the community is at the 3-year mark, the sense of adventure seems to flare back up. Right?
Oh,
and so we've got people that have gone skydiving and started traipsing around Europe, and scuba diving. Scuba diving is the same guy that did the skydiving.
Yeah.
Well, just to be safe, I think I'll skip the skydiving.
All right.
Yeah, this guy doesn't understand.
That guy's a superstar.
Really understand why we will have to jump out of a perfectly.
Yeah, but you say that, but here in Zephyr Hills, it's big in skydiving. People come from all over the world, really, to do skydiving. And I saw the planes they jump out of, and in that case, I probably would want to be wearing a parachute, because they look old and scary.
Yeah.
Right.
It's actually more dangerous to the plane to land with all those people. So you gotta jump on even if you don't want to.
Lighten the load. That's great. Let's say hi. We'd have Dap Gaming, and he's a survivor that gave us his story. He's out of Australia or New Zealand. I can't recall which. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And then Molly Thomas, our director of social media, jumped in to say hi, Scott.
Oh,
Well, hello.
Right.
Hello.
hello.
And so Dap says, totally relate that the noise and the needing background noise to get to sleep. Right.
Yeah.
So you're not alone
Yeah.
there, and that's good to hear.
Right.
Chef Tom says, so well done. Thank you both.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's see here. Given that you would be Santa Claus at the end of this year, right? Because they're still planning on it. You're not even pulling back. You missed 1 year that's never going to happen again, ever.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I
'Cause you
definitely
seem to
miss.
keep that beard year long.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just
My beard grows really slow. So
Okay. You
Yeah.
just reminded me that you're in Florida with that beard.
Yeah.
yeah, well, surprisingly, it's not that hot. It almost acts as a cooling fin when the wind blows through it and captures that nice air.
All right.
So I
I'll
would
give you that.
say, yeah.
Yeah.
So where?
And I do want, sorry, I do want to mention that that was one of the toughest decisions he had to do. My job again is kind of like work and give him the support he needed, but this time he was booked solid, the fastest he's ever been because this was his third year. So now was calling everybody to tell him we have to reschedule. But the day that was supposed to be the first day that he was going to have to go back to work as Santa, he wasn't feeling 100%. So he knew then that it was the best decision. And we said to people, it was one of those things that we did it out of help for us, love for us, but love also for the community that we serve, because it would have jeopardized a lot of the stuff that he did not feel was going to be the best
Right.
Santa
Yeah,
that he
because
could
I
be.
felt like I would not have been able to give 100%. I was afraid, there was that fear that a child would hit me in the chest, and
Throw an elbow.
watching Santa Claus buckle down is no fun.
Right.
And then there is the fear of, because I didn't have any strength, of dropping a child.
A
And
baby.
yeah. So I'm grateful because I have a group of Santa Clauses, the Palm Tree Santas,
Yeah.
that I'm a part of, and they stepped up and helped me out where I needed it, and filled in where they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
That has
that's,
been a great community, great support group.
I hope
Sorry.
the Santas are a great community. They better be.
Oh yeah,
That was
They're amazing. We love them to death. They embraced that when we just came into the community. First of all, that we didn't know anything about it, but once we came into the community, they have always welcomed us like we are part of it. We found our little home there too.
and actually the real Santa Claus is part of that group too.
Yes.
well, I like to hear it. I hope so. All right. So, what kind of schedule does that put you on then? Like, if it's the end of November through the season, are you working 7 straight days the whole
Well,
time?
I mostly weekends, a
Okay.
few nights. Yeah, because I do it on my own. And what I'll probably do this year is just kind of not take a full schedule, and see how I feel, especially at the beginning. And if I'm doing great, then I'll fill my schedule completely, because there's always stuff for Santa to do during
Right.
the
Because, I
season.
mean, right as soon as you mentioned, having to hold a child or them throwing the elbows, I was like, we're going to put you on floats and we're going to be moving you down streets. You're going to be doing gated appearances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so each Santa has their own kind of like thing that they focus on, and Scott is big on the parades. So he's really the official Zephyr Hills Santa, and he does the parade on that.
Yeah, so I'm
Palm
working on trying to get my waving
Right.
arms back into.
the Palm Harbor parade. So, and he will be love if he can just do parades, he will love it. He's one of those that is his calling when it comes to the
Yeah,
parade.
so I'm waiting for Disney to call me back.
Yeah.
You hear that, Disney?
Yeah, they call him back. But also the other part that he does is because we live in Zephyr Hills, so there's a lot of assisted living community. So during the afternoons, where it's not the weekends, because the weekends is where he's more demanded, then we are able to go to those communities and spend some time with the seniors there. And some of those ladies are a little
They get handsy.
too friendly with Santa. They all love to squeeze Santa's lap.
Yeah. And we'll keep this PG, so I won't mention some of the things some of these people say.
But you get dollars stuffed under your beard. That's what you're telling me.
Under my beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you this story really quick about he almost got mobbed by a 4 and 5-year-old little kids. He was it's the funniest thing because he's reading this story and they were like so far from him, but every time he flipped a page, they were getting closer and closer and closer. And by the time he's done, they were like all here. And then took one little girl that said, Santa, can I give you a hug? And they all go, me too. And they all came in and it's like they mobbed Santa. So it was the best experience to see those little boys and girls how much they love Santa, and they will touch his suit. Oh, Santa, you're so soft. You're so soft.
That's amazing. So Dap Gaming here says, my bearded brother, 2 Santas in the Zipper Club. But and then,
All right.
and then I said, you do Santa work? And he was like, no, just a long beard. And then he says,
okay.
what a lovely couple. Bless you both.
Oh, thank you.
Right. And so, I mean, before I let you off of the show tonight, I have to hear the ho, ho, ho. I have to hear the official ho, ho, ho.
Okay. Let me get some of that Christmas magic going.
There's some Christmas magic. She's right next to you in bright red. Look at that smile.
Yeah, I got my elf on the shelf back there. So, okay.
Oh, it's glorious. All right, you two, thank you so much. And we look forward to, I believe you're going to give us a presentation in the future?
Yes, she is. Yeah, I volunteered her.
Definitely. I love to teach you guys a little bit more about.
Yeah, refresh my memory because Karen was very excited about this.
Yeah, well, I've been brokering, I've been helping people with their Medicare options for about 20 years.
That's what
I started when I was 12 and laws, the child laws did not apply back then.
Nice.
But no, I've been really brokering an agency, owning an agency that our focus has always been the people we serve. So I've always been by myself, but I don't know how to do anything else other than teach you and simplify the Medicare information, which is very confusing. And now I'm raising the next generation of insurance leaders with a servant heart, because when you go serve into the community is when that is the way is very successful. And I've been doing it now for 20 years and I love it. And to me, it's not work. To me, it's just where God sends me every single day to help somebody else.
Oh, I'm excited for this. We're going to have to get you in the books. I got to know when that's going to happen. I'm going to learn so much. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. These two, I'm going to let them get to their evening. Thank you so much, everyone. You guys are so cute, the both of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead and tell them good night. Yeah.
All right. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you.